There's a guy in Texas building his own rocket in his backyard. This guy is planning on launching himself into orbit.
The Astronaut Farmer.
In the movie, Farmer risks everything to follow his dream and build a rocket. What's the biggest risk you have taken to follow your dream?
Well, I think it seemed to a lot of people that it was pretty risky to want to be an actress. But my mother was really supportive of that dream, and she said as long as I had to finish school and I had to either go to college or go to acting school. And she was very right about that.
You know, coming to California with nothing and not knowing anybody, it's been a lot of miserable years trying to be an actor here. And I think sometimes it's hard to leave the safety and security of home, even if that's not much. You know, if the nest is pretty bare, it's still hard to leave it. And I'd say that was a pretty big risk. And you know, as an actor, every time you put a movie out, you know, your heart's on the line.
How do you get used to seeing yourself in a movie?
I'm not so much watching me as it's like a home movie. You know, I'm remembering all the things that went on that day, and you know, so it's not just watching myself like this. You know.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah. I mean, you just get used to it after a while. Yeah. You can't really explain it. I guess you see yourself so much because you have to at least see the movie once, you know. And so you've seen them all so many times. And then the other thing is, I probably shouldn't say this, but there are some movies that you do that you really like to watch and you kind of get a kick out of yourself. Yeah. And those are the ones, I got a couple that I'll pull out of the box every now and then and watch, you know.
Billy Bob, you're famous for having all these tattoos. How do you decide what's important enough to mark your body with?
Well, I'm not always right. I've got 14 tattoos.
You do?
Yeah, and I started getting them in 1974, and I think after that, it's just something you kind of keep doing. It becomes like this artwork on you and everything. And I've gotten some names on me before that later I had to change into like an eagle or whatever, you know. But I never regretted any of them because it was a part of my life, and they're kind of a roadmap of my life, you know, or a collage of my life, you know. And I don't regret having known those people, and most of them are still my friends, you know. And I have my kids' names on me, and that's important because they'll always be my kids.
Do you think actors have a responsibility to be role models for kids?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, anytime you're in the public eye, I'll put it this way: if you're doing things that are for kids, if you're doing things that kids are going to be involved in or see, you absolutely have a responsibility. I mean, there are other areas of life that kids never get near. Then you know, you do whatever you want to do. But I certainly want to be a role model for my kids. The thing is sometimes our idea of a good role model these days is not what it used to be. So you try to give them the contemporary things that they need, you know what I mean, and yet bring in the things that you had growing up in a different time. You know, kind of combine those two things and make them make sense. But absolutely you do.
Somewhere along the line, we stopped believing that we could do anything. You better know what you want to do before somebody knows it for you.
The Astronaut Farmer revolves around a man pursuing his dreams. Do you have any dreams that you're yet to fulfill?
Well, I do, and they've evolved through the years. You know, I had this dream when I was your age and younger of flying to space, becoming an astronaut, and somehow I managed to live it. I mean, every day I pretty much count my blessings that I had that. But after I had the experience, it was more a question of teaching and sharing. I mean, I love to share the vision of human space exploration. I love to share the things I've learned with kids. You know, I have 3 daughters of my own and try and share some of those things. And it's more, for me, a case of giving back at this point, because I accomplished everything I ever wanted to do professionally, and now it's just a question of trying to give to others.
What do you think makes space travel important?
Well, I think it's just this really a human need to explore and to keep pushing back boundaries. There's all kinds of other reasons for space exploration specifically, but generically, we as humans need to explore. Now, the benefits, there's tangible benefits from space exploration. There's, if you really stretch it out, a couple hundred years from now, we might get slammed by another asteroid or something. It'd sure be nice if we knew how to prevent that or to steer one away or to do something. We don't have that capability now, but we will only develop that capability in the future, probably not even in your lifetime, certainly not in mine. We'll only develop that capability if we keep pushing forward and exploring.
How close do you think we are to putting a civilian up in space?
Oh, it's already been there, done that. In fact, when the X Prize was won 2 years ago, that was the first private spacecraft to go to the edge of space, did it twice within 2 weeks. The two individuals that piloted that were awarded the first Federal Aviation Administration civilian astronaut wings. And we're seeing more and more of this happening. We've had now the opportunity for some very wealthy individuals to fly to International Space Station on board Russian rockets. And in the next several years, we're going to see more people having the suborbital space experience. So in that sense, we'll have many more civilian astronauts, yeah.
With over 939 hours up in space, does it ever change your perspective of Earth?
Oh, very much so. From the first minute that I first looked at planet Earth from space, I was a changed person in terms of my perspective of what this planet's about. I remember on one of my missions, we were flying over China, and I was floating up on the flight deck with one of my crewmates and looked down. I said, Dave, we can see over 1 billion people right now. There are over 1 billion people in our field of view. And we discussed how kind of humbling that is, and also it just gives you a different way of looking at things.
How real do you think the idea is that a person could build their own rocket?
Well, that may be a bit of a stretch, especially with the kind of short time frames that are in the movie. However, with some of the modern technologies happening, new developments and so forth, there are some great things happening with very small companies in aerospace that are doing, not quite what Charlie Farmer did in the movie, but not that far off from it. I mean, I think it would be very surprising to most people, all of these technologies that are being developed by pretty small groups of people.
What do you think the hardest aspect would be?
Well, it's just, no matter how you slice it, it just takes a lot of energy to get to, particularly to orbit or to escape velocity. Not so hard to go suborbital. And it's managing and controlling all that energy without allowing it to kill you, which makes it tough. And it's a tough business.